Okay, I hope you're well and that you're good. You are happy, focused. Ahilan, maybe we can do a quick check-in in case that makes sense for people to share any questions and even inner dance experiences from the weeks.
Yeah, hi, hello everyone. Yeah, I hope you are all doing well. Yeah, let's do a check-in round. If you feel like also if any questions arise during the last few weeks or last week, and also your experiences, so feel free to unmute yourself and to share.
I had an experience that I wanted to share, where I've been listening to playlists on an evening time, as I'm falling asleep, and I found it really, my body kind of drops into it now, straight away, which is really cool. Whereas at first, I think I had a little bit maybe of resistance to the new playlist style, but what I found is so sometimes I'll wake up quite early in the morning and meditate and then go back to sleep again. And I was meditating, but not listening to a playlist. And I was kind of scanning the body and just noticing what I noticed. And there was a certain part that I was listening to, and I was trying to really like watch and listen to it to see what would happen. And it's almost like it had its own playlist going on. It was very strange. It was like it was kind of playlisting itself. I was listening to it and it had sounds coming from it. I kind of invited it to, make whatever sounds it needed to make, but I could detect its rhythm, and it really did feel like there was a playlist coming from that part of the body. And I thought that was a really interesting experience, because when I actually listened to it in that way, I felt a lot of relief from whatever tension was there. It was almost like it was sounding itself out. And I think since listening to this new style of playlist, that's the first time it's ever happened. They've had certain parts where you ask the body, what does it want to say to you? And it will, maybe some words will come from it, or certain kind of sounds will come from it. But this time, like a playlist started to come from it. And so I thought that was quite cool. Yeah, that was pretty much it. An experience.
Yeah, you can go there.
Hello, everyone. I hope you can hear me okay. So happy to have a space. Thank you, Pai. I just wanted to share that as I've been traveling with this energy of inner dance, I've seen a difference in cultures, a difference of how people react depending on where I am. And I keep on remembering, Pai, your lesson that less is more, less is more. It's just been like so strong with this energy. And while some places require that they kind of want to really see what's going to happen before you're there, I have a little video introductory. The last couple of places has not been the place for it, and they don't ask, I don't show, and less is more. And we didn't have really a point of view. We were in Siargao before. I'm in Manila now, coming this Sunday to Maya. I'm super excited. And well, there was no group formed in Siargao. The energy just unfolded with, for those of you that don't know, it's here in the Philippines, and it's a beautiful island that it has. Most of its people are foreigners and couples that are but two different cultural backgrounds. So you had this strong feeling of different cultural backgrounds and how people react, looked at each other like, if you do it, I do it, that kind of thing. But I just sit and they're looking at me like, help me, convince. And I'm just holding that space, knowing that everything will unfold. And lo and behold, our first group was like completely filled. And it was just so incredible to see that all these dysfunctional situations that they had culturally had just lifted from that. So we didn't have a plan for the following day, and we had a full house the following day. So that was just beautiful. But then yesterday, I was in Mount Peru. It's another nature reserve, 45 minutes from Manila, and the family was all of them from Taiwan and a couple from Manila, but mostly based in the Philippines, sorry, Taiwan. So they're culturally so quiet, came older, all older. They were having breakfast, and I'm absorbing the energy to ask almost the energy. Okay, I don't know what you're gonna do to filter in this group, because in my fun words would be like, this is a tough crowd. Tough because they're just so in peace and so quiet. You could hit a pin drop in their breakfast and there's like 13 family members. But lo and behold, and they asked me, the people that I'm here with, asked me just do a brief presentation. I said, I'm not doing no video. I'm just going to present and do a soft, gentle explanation. And all the family, without doubts, decided to come to the mat. Oh my, this just happened yesterday, by the way. So I'm still like embracing it's 2 a.m. here. But of course I couldn't miss it. And it was so beautiful to see that it's the most internal trip that I have seen from a crowd, because again, the culture, right? But yet they had so profound releases. And I never have any expectations of the shares of any way, shape, or forms. For a minute, I thought these people we're gonna close a namaste and see you later. And that was okay too. Oh my, the shares were so beautiful. So I just wanted to share that. And now traveled in different places and seeing different cultures, when you really let go of any point of view or the need of having any sort of presentation or manifestation of the energy itself, that's where you really see that deeper evolution of the energy. And so it's been very interesting for me. Every time I say, "Oh wow, this is the experience. This is it," and then the next experience comes, and the next experience comes. So that's the update over here, and super happy to share the space with all of you. Sending much love and thank you. Bye.
For those who just joined, we are doing a check-in round, and if you also have a question arising in the last week, please feel free to post here. Please unmute and thank you.
Hi, everyone. Do you hear me?
Yes, we hear you good.
Okay. Hi, everybody. I wanted to share also an experience. I'm holding space here at my place regularly, weekly. And so my kids are living the innerdance experience from very close by. Even when I do organize sessions, for example, on my husband and friends, they ask to participate, and my 9-year-old regularly stands up to help me facilitate. And a few days ago, I had an experience. I had an inner dance with them, and after that, I asked him, "Can you tell something about your experience?" And he said, "Oh, mommy, I was on a place. I really know that place, but I can't describe it. But I know it from a long time ago. It felt safe." So I thought it was a really remarkable, how do you say it, thing he said, like, you know, because we're always talking about going back to the basic, going back to the start of something, an unknown place. And from the day that I started to organize inner dances here, my youngest boys ask me every night, can we sleep with frequencies? So it's really cute, but I was also wondering, they hear it a lot during daytime, and now they ask as well, can we sleep with frequency? So is there a moment where for kids from a certain age it is too much or not? That is one of my questions as well. Thank
Wow.
you.
Okay, thank you. I'm gonna jump in with today's share because there's so many synchronicities between what Tom, Val, and Flor just shared, and I'm really happy. So, hi everyone, welcome to today's call. Yeah, it feels really clear, like we're in the middle of a training in Maya right now, a 15-day, and we're on day 5 tomorrow. It's about 2:30 o'clock in the morning, right? 2:13. So I really enjoyed what you shared, Tom. But you added like a whole different layer, Val, and then I was floored by what Flor shared because she then added like another layer. I think we can have a really good discussion here about a central topic, which is synchronization. We had a really amazing call a day and a half ago, and we went into this topic, and it's always a small group for call number 1. But we brought up quite a lot of questions, like what is an inner dance at 8 o'clock in the morning or 8 o'clock at night, 10 o'clock at night, 12 noon, midnight, 6 o'clock in the morning? Is it the same inner dance? So what is the inner dance awake? What is the inner dance asleep? Would there be the same playlist? Would you touch people the same way? And what about cultures? And what about people coming from different climates? And what about climates that are happening in different times of the year? And what would happen if people jumped from one climate abruptly to another climate? Climate is something I'd like to bring up more and more because we're altering the climate in the human. We're not just changing the climate of the earth, we're changing the climate in humans. So I'm going to go to my screen now in a minute. Wait, not yet. I need to do a share screen. So yeah, I'm really thankful for everyone who shared. I think starting with a check-in is such a good practice. We're going to look at what it means to sync. A lot of people, they love this word, synchronicity. What we would probably bring up is more as well, like synchronization, and what is the connection between these two words? They're different. They mean different things, but they have a connection. So right now, it's already incredible that we're synchronizing with each other. We're coming from all around the world, but we're actually synchronizing with each other. And when you do the work, you know, when you have a whole bunch of people laying down, let's say there are many of these, we're synchronizing all of these people, but we're also synchronizing what is inside each and every person. I think one place to start is there are different levels of synchronization. There's sync happening maybe on the cellular level, I think it's very interesting to study how cells in the heart, in the lungs, in the brain, the neurons, they have a way of talking to each other. And there's so many of them, right? There's like trillions of cells, billions of neurons. There has to be synchronization at work for there to be organization. There has to be communication happening. There's also synchronization happening between organs and maybe glands. So there are communications happening between the thyroid, the adrenal system, the gonads, the brain, the heart. And then we're also synchronizing with the environment, everything around us. It could still be other people. It could be that and that. It could be hot, cold, it could be light and dark. There's some kind of entrainment mechanism taking place. Now, we're bringing this up because inner dance, like the work that we do, we are synchronizing more or less. We are also desynchronizing. There's a lot of this at work. We're synchronizing, we're desynchronizing. So I think it's about time we talk about it. And a lot of science in synchronization more or less talks about clockwork. So if we define the work that we do, we're shifting the clock. We are moving the clock. Like from my experience of living in the island, when I lived in Kalipay, like I did something to my clock, or the clock did something to me. I changed my clock. So I'm trying to think about this sometimes, like what happened to my day and my night, living alone, living in coconuts, living without other people, living in nature. In a way, my night became really long. I experienced like really long nights, but I also experienced very long days. Sometimes they actually felt very, very short. I live in a part of the world where seasons are quite homogeneous, meaning we don't have stark differences between December and June, July. It does rain a lot more, but the climate is pretty much the same. So I think I brought something with me when I altered my clock. I changed my clock. When I brought inner dance as a modality to people, a lot of people think it's something to do with a spiritual thing, an energy thing. But inner dance alters time, and it alters the clock, and it alters the cycle, it alters rhythm. So now we're doing this together. You yourself, you're changing time. You're changing the clock in people. You're creating different sense of the day and the night. I was reading something today about like the crew that lives in like this looks like an airplane, but this is like a submarine. That's a periscope. Such a bad artist, as many of you know by now. The crew in submarines have to endure 18-hour days based on the shifting that needs to happen. So we don't exactly know the effects of this. So when you study the circadian rhythms in people, some people actually have like 26-hour natural clocks. Some people might have 25. Some people might have 23, 24. So if you lived, let's say, in a really dark space, like in a cave, and you weren't given entrainment mechanisms between the natural night and day cycles, you would find like a natural flow in which your natural clockwork would come up. So I don't know how long your day would be. I'm trying to think about like how long is my night actually in my day? because I rarely sleep if I didn't have to. Now I sleep a lot more because I live with other people and I work a lot more than I'm used to. But I think if left to my own, like I would have a really different clockwork. And I think a lot of people are changing their clocks, like around the earth, around the world. I think a lot of people are changing their clock. The clock of the earth, I think, is changing really fast because of the internet, artificial lighting, lifestyles, inner dance, the food that we eat, the things that we're drinking. So I think that's really quite interesting and important to share. Now, in inner dance, we discovered very early, in the early years of inner dance, we already discovered that there are different entrainment mechanisms. So all of these techniques that we hold, whether it be the way we hold people, like literally and figuratively, the way we bring context to the space, way we use music, the way pictures and colors start to appear like in the mind, the way we position the body, right? The way we open up the body so that trigger mechanisms can bring about entrainment mechanisms. We had early discoveries that we actually can bring about synchronization and desynchronization. So it's up to us in the long term to wonder how much of that is natural and how much of that is provoked, evoked, which could be part of nature, but we're establishing a new range or a new spectrum of synchronization that might not have been so normal. Could have been natural, but it's not so normal in the last centuries or millennia. So this is to say we have been altering the human mind, brain, and body. We've been altering we've been altering ourselves for a long time. Right now, people are very interested in the altered state of experience. But alteration has been happening through evolution. It's just that the alteration is happening almost overnight. The shifting in time is so fast, and we're adapting. We're adapting to the changes like super duper fast. So I think we should look at nature as a kind of teacher. We should listen to nature. Nature, I think, is a really good teacher. Living in Maya, like in the mountains, I tend to listen a lot to synchronization. Like when we do inner dance sessions, for those who have been here, like Fiona, I think is in this call, Vala's in this call, Fanny Ahilan. When we conduct the inner dances early in the morning, there's a synchronization with the insects, cicadas. Um, they actually start to make really loud sounds. They make really loud sounds, and then when they do, the birds would start to um add to the playlist. I don't know if you can hear the gecko behind me, but they also do their own thing quite often. And then when it rains, you would have the frogs. So something very, very interesting in this part of the world. Like supposedly it only happens in Southeast Asia. I want to visit them. There's quite a lot near us. You have to go to a mangrove. When you spend time with fireflies, fireflies are very, very interesting because they have a way of synchronizing. They have these oscillators. I mean, all of these that I've mentioned, they have oscillators, except for birds and frogs and geckos. Cicadas and crickets especially have inbuilt oscillators that are very similar to what are in synthesizers and musical instruments. That fireflies have electric oscillators, so they flash And if you watch them in Southeast Asia, supposedly the oscillators would synchronize with each other, meaning the flashing lights of fireflies would synchronize automatically, meaning they blink together. So they have a way of communicating with each other through electricity and light. I find that really, really fascinating. Now, lately there have been findings that it's actually happening in the Americas as well, but there hasn't really been literature beyond what's been observed in places like Malaysia or the Philippines, Borneo, Sabah. I think we should spend time with the playlists of nature because there's a larger inner dance happening, and I think the human body is mimicking like a lot of this. So that's maybe one interesting thing to look at. Um, Nature belongs outside. Nature is also like internal. So we would probably be looking for the parts of the body that have pacemaking abilities, like what parts of the body synchronize. What are the clock setting parts of the body? So for one, like in the brain, there are different parts in the brain that synchronizes us according to the 24-hour or 12-month cycle. There are also parts of other parts of the body, like the heart, for example, like specifically like the SA node keeps us in a constant rhythm. So we know when to pulsate the heart at like 7 o'clock in the morning or 7 o'clock at night. Lately, though, like what's really interesting is entrainment is now being accredited to every cell in the body seems to actually have a clockwork. So cells aren't entirely just dependent on what we might call the hypothalamus, the SCN, or the SA node in the heart. The cells themselves, on a minute level, actually have um, clock pacemaking capacities. And this is really, really quite sensitive um, to everything happening around us, to sounds, to to the words that we hear, to what we see, how the body is positioned. Could add like a lot of things, like pain, temperature. The body is very sensitive to magnetism. We actually have magnetoception sense, um, or let's say like the vestibular function, like when you shift balance in the body, magnetoception. All of these are trying to achieve something, and a lot of it's probably based on like balance. Just having wrote that homeostasis, the body is always trying to regulate itself. And one of the best ways it can do that is through the clock. So we are regulating the clock, but in the healing process, we are also deregulating the clock because the clock holds basically like a lot of memory. It holds a lot of pattern. And we're shifting those memories, we're shifting those patterns. So you have a lot to learn. And I wanted to bring up synchronization or synchronicity today as a central topic, because I think it would begin to speak about thousands or tens of thousands of other things we can talk about centralized within the one. I feel that what people are actually searching for, the reason why they come to the work, we ourselves are in the same intention. What are we looking for? We're looking for synchronization. I feel people are looking for synchronization. They're looking for a way to synchronize with like other human beings. Like we want to live in harmony with other human beings. We're trying to synchronize, say, the past with the present. So when people lay down, a lot of the thoughts start to align. There would be a thought alignment between memories and the now, and maybe even the future starts to come into the field, and it like there are connections that we may not have seen before. We're also trying to synchronize maybe our behavior, the way we act, along with our thoughts and uh, our our speech, our language, like what we believe, what we share, and what we act become integrally like one. What else would be there? So yeah, I feel that human beings are looking for synchronicity or synchronization, and it's not easy because we live in complex environments. We're also living with a lot of emotion, and a lot of those emotions hide anxiety and anxiety and fear. So when we balance our lives and we're hiding behind fear, sometimes the quest for synchronicity or even synchronization is we're obsessed with certainty. We're obsessed with looking for order. But we would have to look at this concept of order. The order belongs in nature, but there is something entropic in life, in the earth, where disorder needs to come up more and more and more. And so chaos somehow plays a role in life. And the more people account for chaos, chaos theory was very, very big a couple of decades ago now. A new science that I've been interested in over the years is chaos theory has now given way to complexity theory, where the brain, the basically, and we're now finding out that there's beauty in our complexity. There's a kind of order that's a spontaneous order that a lot of people would regard as chaos. Chaos actually is order in a nonlinear way, and that order is bound by very, very nonlinear rules. So even though it seems like things are messy, there's a higher or deeper order there. And when we go into the inner dance, we actually allow that spontaneous order to come through the doorway of chaos. When we enter the doorway of chaos, we enter the room of spontaneous order. And sometimes we just need to wait it out, to be patient. Yeah. I think we're learning to enter other dimensions, like multi-dimensionality. So when Flor shares what her 9-year-old son spoke, like I'm going to another space. I think what's really interesting is when we live in, let's say, a three-dimensional reality that's quite linear, causal, deterministic, and materialistic, we don't always see the synchronicity. I think the synchronicity is always there. And this is something we're pointing out more and more to people. We're not aware that it's always there because we're looking at it from dimensionalities that don't make the synchronicity visible. So when we move to another dimension, to other dimensions, we see the synchronicity, and sometimes we're like, oh wow, it's coming together. Actually, it's not. It's always there. It's never coming together. It's always just there. It's just that we're moving to a place where we can see it. So this is more or less like our service to humans. Okay, so I think those are really interesting thoughts that can inspire. But going deeper into the topic, I'm really grateful to be in conversation with people in the inner dance world, or whatever you call your work. Like if we share similar work, we actually have intimacy with synchronization. So we may not always be aware of it, but we're using the techniques. The insights are always usually descriptive, but I think if we worked with scientists, there are actual mathematical or algorithmic explanations to what we're doing. I'm not an anal person. I'm not a very reductive person. But in my techniques, when I use music, especially, there's a lot of math. I'm aware that there's a lot of math in what I do when I use music. So right now, especially, I'm using synthesizers. Why am I using synthesizers? I'd love to share more about this, so that you might be interested in it. Synthesizers, what they do is they synthesize. There's a kind of synthesis involved in synthesizers. What makes me interested in them is that synthesizers are equipped with what are called oscillators. You don't need the synthesizer to produce oscillation. Your voice can oscillate. Any instrument can oscillate. What is an oscillation anyway, right? It's like a back and forth motion, a kind of repetition, or it's a recursive thing. Something goes up or down, in and out. But what I do like about synthesizer oscillators is they match the oscillators of the brain. Like the brain has oscillators as well. The brain has like thousands of types of oscillators across the whole nervous system, and they're sending out signals with each other. So I feel we would study these completely. Like we study the oscillators in the brain, because whether you know it or not, when you conduct like this inner dance work, you are bringing about oscillation activities in the brain, and the brain speaks language of a frequency, amplitude. So that's why I really like what Flora's son said. Like, could we listen to frequencies at night? How good is that? It can't get better. Can we listen to maybe that should be like the title of a book, like according to the child, why aren't we listening to frequencies while we're awake or asleep? But the brain's constantly doing this, and there's a metacognition, a meta experience where we're really just becoming aware of something we're always doing. So something the brain is always doing, no matter what, is no matter what you feed the brain, it always seeks to synthesize many inputs, many sensorial inputs, what we hear, what we see, what we feel, smell, taste, touch. We're always trying to look for the totality, what you might call the gestalt, the sense of wholeness. So when you see like a face, for example, a face is not a face. It's made up of a whole bunch of parts. And when you look at a face, you make a decision. Is the face sad, disgusted, or, so the brain's always doing this. We're always, and something I like about what Tom spoke is when we can do it in either a non-linear or linear way. The brain is creating like a picture of the world, an internal representation. But what he described here underneath that picture is we're creating a sound. This is what I'm really interested in. When you expose people to different sounds, it could be like that frequency and then maybe a little bit of that frequency. If you add all of these together, what the brain would end up with is it would create like some kind of big soundscape. And then it would construct a wholeness out of that, like a mandala, or it would put all these sounds together and it would make it all one. It would make the three or the two one. It's like that Spice Girl song, and you make when two or three or four become one, then the brain is able to take in like the totality that's a summation of all the parts. I think synchronicity is about that. Because when you think about how many cells are in your body, there's trillions. And then when you think about how many neurons are in your brain, there's like billions, like maybe 50 to 70 billion. When you think about how many oscillators, an oscillator is that which sends out a frequency message. You have thousands of them, thousands of frequencies. What the body, brain, mind is doing is it's actually making it one. I think that's what's really wonderful about it. So here's where complexity is not alien to simplicity. This is what we do. We are able to take what's in the ecosystem or the universe, or even just in your own body. You're so complex. You're really complicated. You make it simple. You somehow have this really amazing ability through deep story, deep time, big history, like universe history. You found a way. You have a way of making it all one, and the methodology to do that is through sync. So my suggestion to you is to master the language of sync. If you're going to master a whole bunch of languages, a lot of people are trying to master the language of transmission, resonance, activation. One language you can master is sync, synchronization. Like how does synchronization happen? Okay, so I really like this way of outlining. We keep going back to the same starting point. Okay, so like how, why, what. So yeah, we can think about this from a cellular level. Before that, just we're still in an introductory phase. Internal synchronization thinks about synchronization between organs and let's say glands. So like the heart needs to communicate with the brain and then needs to communicate with the lungs. They're synchronizing with each other. Like what happened there? Oh no, wait. This app just synchronized the it's now playing a music you probably can't hear. Wait. Oh no. I'm gonna just take out the volume and let that do its thing. Brain, breath, and blood are synchronizing with each other. So we're going to be going over that a lot this year. We already spoke about like external synchronization, and we would have to talk about the circadian rhythms quite a lot. This is a really huge topic. Like how are we synchronizing our circadian system? Now, one of the amazing things about this is actually based on the fact that circadian science is relatively unknown still. We know that it happens, but the causality, the microscopic causation of it is largely unknown. Science is still scratching its head and rubbing its palms excitedly. There's a lack of mathematical awareness. A lot of the understanding in circadian rhythmicity is descriptive. So people in the inner dance science and spirit were actually in the same page as many scientists are. Circadian rhythms, very, very interested in like dream time, sleep wake cycles. We actually are in step or in sync with science still, because it's a very new science. I would say you are ahead in many ways, experientially, if you're working on your body in this way, and if you are facilitating through your work, you are becoming an expert in circadian rhythmicity in an intuitive way. So in that way, you are contributing hugely, right? So in the long term, we're going to study the master synchronization system, the master clock, and we would implicate. If I'm gonna quickly just go over this, we're gonna implicate the hypothalamus as a governing system. It's a gland in the brain, which has neural and glandular functions and architecture. The hypothalamus is a place that sends out signals that's related to fear, anxiety, love, or trust, and also dream. So the part of the brain that contains the clock that establishes fear, love, and dream, they're very near each other. Okay, the place that coordinates all of these according to the clock, their nuclei within the hypothalamus, they're very, very near each other. So when someone is in more of this, it actually would affect this. And if someone is more here, that as well would affect this one, the way people regulate sleep, wake, breathing, heartbeat, brainwave activity. So I think that's very, very interesting to be more specific to this. What we would study, number one, we'd study the stress axis. This is the hypothalamic pituitary adrenal axis. And then the metabolic axis. And then reproduction axis is also another. And then immunity and digestion and so on and so forth. Like all of these are synchronizing with each other. And what's very interesting, and maybe we can just bring this up today and not the other ones so much, but we can take this up in the next months. A lot of what regulates these is actually temperature. Temperature affects this one, that one, that one, that one. And you can just keep going on. Sleep, wake, breathing patterns, brainwave patterns. So when you alter the temperature, you would bring about its shift. Now, what's interesting is we're not depending on the temperature of the earth. We're not depending on summer or winter. We're actually realizing that you can alter the temperature in people's bodies. You literally can use these entrainment mechanisms like sound, touch, proprioception, words. Depending on how you hold the space, you can alter the temperature in people's bodies. Now, this is hugely important, particularly because right now, scientists are realizing that phonons, the basic particles of sound, like there are photons of light, which is the particle of light as opposed to light as a wave. When sound is a particle, phonons have magnetic properties, meaning sound can bind thoughts and feelings and realities. And when you alter sound, you alter the magnetism in people. And magnetism is related to time. So when you alter the magnetism in people, you alter time. Sound also has thermal properties. So when you alter the sound in people, you actually alter their climates. So you would have all these personal experiences or expressions from others where people would say, like, I actually felt really cold in the process. But then you would uh, hear a lot of people say, I felt really hot. It doesn't matter if it's summer or winter, people would experience either of these, and you would then sometimes hear about it or experience it yourself. It feels hot or cold at the same time. One of the ancient names of energy, including Kundalini, is this is one of the ancient names of the mother. It's liquid fire, so it's hot and cold at the same time. So the work that we do alters temperature. Climate change is not just happening in the earth. You're actually conducting climate change inside humans. I want to describe then synchronization as a science and how you are exactly doing that. I think it's very interesting to think about simultaneous co-activation of the sympathetic and parasympathetic. But how are you able to simultaneously co-activate hot and cold? Is that even possible? Like what is that? It's like being in the hottest summer and the coldest winter day, and it's at the same time. That's literally what inner dance feels like. A lot of that has to do with synchronization. Okay, so I would need to go into a little bit of deep basic science here. Here's an interesting map. Okay, wait, let me get rid of the iPad screen for a bit. Now I'm hearing this music in my laptop. Wait. No, it's my iPad. Okay, wait, sorry. Let's go here. Okay. So studying this map, what do you see? Okay, cortisol level would establish stress levels. So here, okay, we can see here right before you wake up, cortisol level in anticipation of waking up in the day, it's beginning to climb up right before you wake up. It usually climbs up 2 hours before you awaken. It anticipates cortisol actually in a way wakes you up. You don't need an alarm clock. Cortisol is an alarm clock. So melatonin would be green, cortisol is blue. What you see is they normally oppose each other, so that when cortisol stress is high, melatonin, which brings you into the sleep cycle, it goes down. So yellow is attention. Notice that when cortisol is high, yellow follows, and cortisol drops. There's maybe an hour or two difference. You can't pay attention. You develop ADD or ADHD. Core body temperature would be somewhere in between cortisol and melatonin. So core body temperature would be at the highest. I don't like this map. Let's look for like this one. It's not here. I think there's a different representation of this. Maybe I'd rather just do it on my iPad, because core body temperature is actually supposed to drop. The nadir of core body temperature is around let's just simplify it into one. mapping. This would be 6 a.m. and this would be 12 noon. Oops.
We can't see your screen at the moment, Pi.
Oh
we
yeah,
can't.
sorry. Okay. When that happens, I need to stop sharing, share screen again, and then share the iPad. Yeah. Thank you, Tom. This would be 12 noon, and then this would be about no, this would be about 6, no, closer to here, maybe 6 p.m. And this should be more of a gentle slope. Let's make this about 12 midnight. And then this should be going up again. So this should be about 6 o'clock a.m. again. Okay, so this is core body temperature. And as we saw in the graph, like cortisol starts to climb up right around here. Melatonin would be peaking at around here. It's usually at about 3 o'clock in the morning. So you call this a zombie zone. This is when you would be the most asleep. This is when the sleep pressure would be highest. Okay, so core body temperature has this natural flow throughout the day, which is already quite interesting. So why would we do it in the inner dance process that you actually are creating these waves? This is core body temperature. So in a particular workshop, depending on how you're holding the energy, say you're using sequential music, core body temperature actually goes up and down multiple times. Now, regarding the fact that clockwork is established by this particular core body temperature wave, singular wave, with smaller waves in between. There might be smaller waves in between, but within like a big picture, there's one big wave that repeats itself. When you do these multiple waves within the span of, let's say, an hour to an hour and a half, what you're doing is you're altering time. Can you see it this way? When you raise and drop core body temperature super quickly within 60 to 90 minutes, you basically compress the day, and then you expand the night, which is when dream time would happen. You alter time perception. So like an hour isn't an hour anymore. A lot of people would say, wow, I went back to the womb. I went to the earth. I went to the cosmos. And they literally say, I went there. I literally lived the life of the earth, like in a psychedelic journey. That's one of the mechanisms in how we're able to bring people into the much bigger space. And we are able to conduct that not just through all, like how we're able to alter core body temperatures. We're affecting various parts of the body, like dopamine cells are also time cells. Okay, now when you alter, let's say, certain brain waves, like within theta, gamma, you also affect, let's say, the hippocampus and the entorhinal cortex, and a lot of these have time cells as well. And then you are definitely triggering the hypothalamus, and the hypothalamus records the clock. The suprachiasmatic nucleus is very, very sensitive to light and dark. So when you are asking someone to lay down during the day, say during the day, ask someone to lay down, the person is enacting the night processes. So melatonin, which is supposed to go up around this time. Melatonin should start going up around this time. When the sun goes down, melatonin levels go up. When you do an inner dance, maybe around here or around here, melatonin is very, very low. So the kinds of inner dance mechanisms that you would perform, you would need more depressant or inhibitory mechanisms because cortisol levels are high, right? Cortisol is high and melatonin is low. So you would need maybe more relaxing mechanisms. But if you conduct an inner dance uh, around like here, melatonin levels are rising, cortisol level is falling. So you would need to maybe wake up people a lot more, you know? So when you think about many of the sessions around the world, a lot of them are happening at times like these because that's when people are coming from work. That's when the yoga center is open, and for me, it's not actually the ideal timing. I prefer inner dances to happen at around like 7 o'clock in the morning, based on melatonin is still um, there are residues of melatonin from the dream time, and cortisol level is also rising. So it brings people into this kind of wakeful, sleepy dream state. I really like inner dances as well at around 3 o'clock in the afternoon is a siesta time. The two times when people would be most likely to fall asleep would be here, and it would be around here. And if people who have like normal circadian cycles, the two timings in the day where it's very, very difficult to fall asleep would be around here, like 10 o'clock in the morning and around 8 to 9 p.m. Around here, yeah. Which is when most people are doing their sessions. It's it's the time of the day where people are least likely to fall asleep, about 2 hours before bedtime. There's still quite a lot of focus happening there. So there's something very profound with what Tom and Flor spoke about her son talking about, can I listen to frequencies while I'm sleeping? And Tom trying out the new playlist systems. To know what time you did that, midnight or 11 o'clock. It's there's something more dreamy at around that time. And not just that, the types of playlists that we're designing is actually supposed to help that. It looks really, really messy now. I'll clean things up soon. But the new playlist systems, they're quite different. Now, a lot of the old playlisting styles actually influence the way a lot of people are doing things now. Probably because like in our old retreat center, like in Bahay Kalipay, a lot of inner dances were happening around here. They were happening around here. And because people are quite getting sleepy-ish around then, they just ate dinner. You actually would need a lot more drums and rhythm to bring about a rise in cortisol levels. Like cortisol is already dropping down here. So if we study the autonomic nervous system, the sympathetic nervous system is now coming to rest stages, right about here, like going down here. So if people were to confront their fear, their anxiety, their trauma, ideally there might actually be times of the day when that would tend to happen more. It would be maybe around here, um, or maybe around here. Okay, I would never really do it at noontime. I haven't thought about why. I probably wouldn't do it at 7 o'clock. I would I would do it maybe around here. I mean, it's all going to work out no matter what time of the day, but understanding synchronization and rhythmicity, what a weird spelling. It's really hard to speak and write at the same time. Melatonin. Melatonin. Yeah, because we're recording this. I do wanna not spell things like I was in preschool. Okay. So rhythms around the world in many workshops, they're coming with a specific style because a lot of the workshops in Singapore, in Taiwan, in Malaysia when we were beginning, and now in Europe, Americas, Australia, because of lifestyle, um, a lot of the inner dances are like that. People are maybe establishing a certain range of BPM, maybe around between 80, 90, maybe 100 BPM to try to bring up cortisol levels. But if we were designing inner dances at other times of the day, rhythm should actually be slower. It could be maybe drops down to be 40 to 60 BPM. And in the new playlisting systems, we mix very, very slow BPM activity with very high BPM. Could be as high as 200 BPM. And that is very, very suitable for when people are sleeping. There are different playlisting systems for sleep and wake, also for different times of the day. And this is something we're studying at the moment. And now we're talking about this. So, okay, let's clean this up. It's so dirty. Okay, so where are we right now? Let's go into neurons. How do neurons oscillate with each other? Remember, there are thousands of oscillators and trillions of cells that need to communicate with each other. There has to be communication between them. So this could be very wild. Like neurons have oscillators, and these oscillators are sending out what we would call frequencies. So that's where brain waves are coming from. Brain waves become possible because of how many cycles per second are oscillating, that we call hertz. So let's look at the alpha wave, for example. The alpha wave would be around 7 or 8 hertz. Let's just say 7.5, let's say 8. Let's put it at 8 hertz. So alpha wave is an idealized wave often because it's the in-between wave. So in past decades, there's been so much literature and talk about going into the alpha state, the alpha band, alpha power. So alpha mediates theta. So theta would be, oh, what's happening to me? Theta would be um, maybe 4. 0 to 4 would be the delta, right? So the range should be 0 to 4. Oh, and then 4 to 8. And then 8, alpha would be 8 to 13. And then beta would be 13 to 30. I think I'm making a mistake here somewhere. Gamma would be 30 upwards. Okay, so alpha is in the in-between state. And let's think about this from like an inner dance perspective. What are we actually doing in inner dance? So let's say we are conducting all these oscillations all at the same time. And then the brain's looking for a combined signal, an average signal. Later we would study what's called neural frequency coupling, which is an ability of the brain to beat match different frequencies into one frequency. So technically what that would look like was a fast wave and a slow wave would look like this. And we can see that in EEGs. We're watching that in Maya, where we have 3 EEGs right now. So the brain has a way of doing that coupling mechanism. One other term used is phase locking. And you have to be very patient because often it takes time for oscillations to phase lock with each other. It could take as long as like 10 minutes, or for some people, maybe even longer, like 30 minutes. So when all these manifestations start to come out, it could be people are crying, visions begin to appear, the body moves or starts to have all these sensations, goes to the cosmos and so on and so forth. That actually means the synchronization has taken place, that a phase locking has happened. Now, from what we do know about the science of sync and the science of synchronization, the question is why do neurons or oscillators sync with each other? From what we know, there's a really important terminology in innerdance. It's included in the 12 stages. It's called the threshold. What is the threshold? It's like the point of no return. It's like the peak point. It's like the boundary, the edge, let's say. It's like the threshold is the edge. So let's say when you're building a playlist system, you climb up. The threshold would be the edge or the peak until such time you do drop into purgation and release, and then you oscillate once more into different peak points within the REM state. But here's N2 and here's N3. Too soon to go into those just now. For now, let's agree that there is a threshold within the playlist, the classic playlist anyway. I'm not following this formula so much anymore. And this is like the new playlist systems that Tom talks about. Now, when you create like a catharsis, like an explosion, that's a threshold. And technically in neural synchronization, synchronization actually happens after the threshold. When a threshold happens, there's like a critical point. And how to reach that critical point? It's actually when there is a heterogeneity. For those who don't know this word, it means when there's a diversity of oscillations or oscillators. When there's actually like a lot of chaos, there is a tendency towards order. There's a tendency towards finding a common thing. So it's very, very mysterious because let's say you have like all these oscillators scattered across like a whole brain. What I love about this is there's no boss. There's no leading, like I am the leader, I am the one, and I'm going to define that we're all going to oscillate at like 8 hertz or 9 hertz. It's very, very mysterious that there's like a clumping of oscillations so that suddenly there could be a cluster of oscillators. This is what's called like a nucleus. When these begin to synchronize, they actually pull in a lot of the different oscillators and they average out so that then there would be a commonality that establishes like a spread. And this is how inner dance happens. Like electricity is that which spreads. Technically, these are called firing patterns, action potentials in the brain. When electricity spreads in the brain, through the brain regions, the parietal, occipital, the temporal, and the frontal lobe, that's when like all these manifestations happen, like the body moving, people crying, people seeing things, because electricity rises and it spreads out, becoming unleashed. Now, don't get overexcited. Like this is actually happening all the time anyway. Like when you're seeing an image, let's say you see an image, for you to make something of that image, already there's a sync happening. But let's say you see this image. Yeah, there could be a sync that happens, but the sync is very out of step because you're not making connections to mean anything. Here, it made squiggles, but you actually know what that is. It has meaning to you, so there's greater synchronization. But there's a very different synchronization activity when we conduct an inner dance, because we're not actually dealing with symbols. We're moving away from these. We're in fact creating diversity or heterogeneity. So what that looks like from, let's say we visualize that in a neuronal level, still maybe speaking the language of waves. Let's say we come up with a chart here where, let's make a grid. Say let's measure the cycles or the hertz levels per second. Maybe this is around 4, 5, 6. No, let's make them tinier. Let's say 6, 8, 10, 12 hertz. These are hertz. Okay. Um, uh, there's an averaging out. Let's say understanding 8 would be alpha. Then let's say you have a whole bunch of hertz, and then there would be a greater amount. Let's say the vertical axis would be the amount of oscillators that are emanating. There would be a general pull of many oscillators, say 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 10, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 12. Like a lot of the oscillators would get pulled into a common oscillation when a sync is happening. So this is maybe us in a normal thinking, feeling, behaving, speaking environment. In inner dance, are we synchronizing? In many ways we are, but in many ways we actually are not. We're shifting this wave pattern. So in a way, as many of you do know how inner dances are designed, we actually tend to decrease the power of alpha and beta band. And then let's say this would be greater delta theta, and then this would go higher all the way to maybe 30, and maybe even beyond, let's say 50 hertz. When we add the possible synchronization of the higher and the lower, and then we lessen the tendency for the rising and falling of the lower hertz level, then what we're doing here is we're adding to heterogeneity. There's more diversity of wave patterns. So we're extending the band, the spectrum. So let's say when you wake up, when you wake up in the morning and you make your way through the day, say you need to be focused. Your normal band of power ideally ought to be here. So you need to phase lock a lot of the synchronizations here. It's towards the middle, where you can solve problems, take care of the kids, and sequence events in a very logical way. But when you do go to sleep, what happens in fact is the higher and the lower band increases. So you're not in beta state as much anymore. You'd be experiencing a lot more delta, theta, gamma, and HOF states. So that's how synchronization occurs in the inner dance process. If you're doing that while people are awake, that actually can have a generalized spreading of activation, spreading of activation of neural patterns, as opposed to when you're awake, the synchronization tends to be more localized. It's more localized. Okay, so I'd like to present this in the long term, because when you do study playlisting models, sequential music, Spotify music, a lot of people are using, it's very good at conducting localized and generalized spreading of activation, meaning people are jumping, say this is a sequential playlist. People jump from, let's see, here is a localized spread. No, this is a generalized spread somewhere here. But when it rises and falls, there's like a switching from localized and generalized. So meaning you have these brain lobes, like the frontal, parietal, temporal, and occipital. When the body is moving, a lot of the spread is here in the frontal. And then sometimes there would be a spread, but it would keep going back to this when people keep triggering the body or using music to make the body go into the Kundalini activation movements. When the body isn't moving anymore, that's when the generalized spread has happened. Generalized spread. And the whole brain is now lit up. And that's happening within the new playlisting systems where there's more simultaneity. Now, if you are designing your own playlists soon, let's say you're looking for songs or you're working with synthesizers. Wait, let me share. I'm not gonna I'm not going to play the sounds today, but these are my tools. Like that's like a drone machine that has about 8 oscillators. That has 2 oscillators at a time. This has 4 oscillators at a time. These have 2 each, but they're submodular, so they have quite a lot. But in particular, I want to point to this one. It's a drum machine, and that to become relevant in the conversation as we go along. Let me go back to the screen now. Can you see my iPad? Okay, I hope you do. Just let me know if you don't. So why do I work with synthesizers? Because they have a lot of oscillators. You can find apps for your phone that has oscillators. A lot of songs are recorded with synthesizers anyway, and a lot of the ones that work, they were recorded with ones that have multiple oscillators happening at the same time. Now, when you have a bunch of oscillators, they're like mini voices, all singing different mechanisms. What organizes a lot of these would be the drum. Okay, so there's a reason why you would look for a song that has a good drum pattern, a good beat, what you might call a rhythm. All right. Let's talk about rhythm now. Rhythm organizes the oscillators. So when you have a drum pattern, for example, like boom, 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 and then you have a whole lot of oscillations happening there, all spread out. The drum organizes the patterns of all these. I think I have I put up my Ableton Live thing. So these are some of my instruments. I decided that I could help you visualize. This is like a tritone instrument. It's all really mathematical. The guy who designs these, he comes out of chaos theory. Like here, I could go into the Lorentz equation. Lorentz is the founder of chaos theory. If you know the butterfly effect, I can conduct variations between, meaning like I'm not a mathematician. I'm really bad at math, but I'm really interested in how the oscillations would bring about complexities, and I'm really interested in what the mind would do with that. Like here, I can adjust like how many birds are there and how fast or slow they're synchronizing with each other. Okay, so all the songs, they actually can do that. It's already inbuilt, so you would be attracted to a lot of songs because the artist had already found a way for the drum pattern to organize the different oscillations, which is happening in the brain. So music and brain, they're speaking to each other. Now, there's a lot of people, they compare rhythm with sync. You know, when you're in sync, you're in rhythm. We think that rhythm and sync are the same. They're actually not. They mean very, very different. They mean very, very different things. Rhythm is a repetition of events in a constant pattern. Synchronization is not rhythm necessarily. Sync happens when different oscillations are simultaneously happening at the same time. So, for example, one example would be if you had like an orchestra, right? Let's say you had an orchestra. Let's say when you have a violin section, you have all these violins simultaneously synchronized with each other. They may not follow the same repetition of events or the same rhythm. They can shift according to they can shift according to um, I think there was a study. I remember a study made where the way people clap in concerts in Eastern Europe are very different in America, where in America people would just clap in a chaos pattern, and in Eastern Europe people clap all together as one, you know. So there's like a simultaneity there. So sync happens in simultaneity, and rhythm actually allows for sequentiality. So this brings us back into the grid of like space and time. Rhythm allows for sequencing, and synchronization allows for things to take place all at the same time. It allows things to happen all at the same time. So understanding then that it's very important to understand that when a synchronization happens, the synchronization actually happens very, very quickly. It happens only in milliseconds. It doesn't actually last. And I think one of the reasons why this happens, based on the literature out there, is that the brain needs to make space for new awareness, new thoughts, new patterns. So we need to clean up the old constantly. But when you have, I feel like a globalized spread, and a globalized spread is possible when you have low and high frequencies oscillating at the same time, then you're using a greater part of the brain, and I feel that the synchronization lasts longer. Sync lasts longer. It could take longer, like it could be more slow acting. It could take longer to happen, but it is more long term. And for that reason, when people go to light language or aphasia where they can't think or speak for a long duration, it's because synchronization is lasting longer. Now, understand when people go into epileptic seizures, epilepsy is an event, seizures. Epilepsy is an event in which desynchronization and synchronization are happening at the same time. Like a seizure is when there is a sudden synchronization of synaptic connections across a region in the brain, either localized or generalized. And what we're doing in inner dance, we speak about this again and again, we are inducing the very same seizures, but within a spiritual framework. It's actually just raising electricity in the brain, which goes into a spread. Okay. So going back into the playlisting systems, what you would study, this is really what we're introducing this week now. Like if you were to study how to playlist, you would study the different options of syncing and taking away taking from what what we're establishing as ideas today. You actually have a lot of choices. So a lot of the songs that you might find in Spotify, they will oscillate around a lot of emotional, personal alpha beta frequencies. For that reason, we're creating new music, using new instruments. We're deciding to produce a lot of new music within the eco village because there's a lot that's not available that would go beyond the experience of the old patterns. Going into new patterns, we're actually needing to oscillate new frequencies, new oscillations, and these oscillations they carry with them a lot of information. They carry with them a lot of information. Like one useful. Okay, let me look for. I think I need to go to Turkey. That's the only. It would be in the website, but I don't have time to look for where I stored it. There's a very helpful map here. It's right here. That shows us how faster oscillations are happening at the base of the brain, the pons, the medulla, the entering the midbrain. We actually need to slow down thinking or thought when it enters the neocortex. So action, cognition is made possible when we slow down vibrations. But when you are at the level of the sensory pathways entering let's say the thalamus, before it spreads out into the visual cortex, the auditory cortex, and so on and so forth, the vibration is very, very fast. So one of the reasons why we are coupling frequencies is we don't want to get rid of thought. We don't want to stop thought. Like our point isn't to stop thinking. It's actually to allow thought to meet with intuition, which is almost animalistic, reptilian, alien vibrations, which tend to be like higher in speed. So when you can meet the slower vibrations, thought, say memory would be here, like theta frequencies, alpha would be gating a lot of that, like the fastest and the slowest, they would couple with each other. And the point here is there's a lot of information here before it gets gated and then becomes very, very limited to the thought forms, thought patterns that we normally like to think from the point of view of the ego. When you increase the speed of thought, you hold a lot more information, and that information is not gated. So to synchronize slow and fast would mean you actually would be able to think in a vibratory way. There would be a lot of solutions, creative solutions to problems that you might not have seen before. And for that reason, like a lot of the new playlists, people are saying like they're getting a lot of new ideas. They're seeing new things. So I would end this talk by looking back at the word chaos, because a lot of people think that inner dance is chaotic. In the simple usage of the term, the colloquial definition of the term, chaos for a lot of people means like a state of total disorder. The chaos is really just like, it's messy. I got critiqued in the past where people say, you're messing people up high. It's like, they were judging me. They had no idea what I was doing. They would just be observing what's happening in people's bodies. It's really chaotic, Pi. What's happening? In a technical sense, chaos refers to a state that might only appear random. It's actually being generated by non-random rules. So there's still order. It's just that the order is not random. The rules are based on the science of complexity. So the equations to measure that would be nonlinear. As such, chaos actually occupies like an unfamiliar middle space. And so chaos would be the middle space, in fact, between order and disorder. It's a space in between. It mediates, which means chaos, in fact, hides a higher order. There's a very high order, and it takes a while. So you might yourself get critiqued if people see what you're doing. They think you're bringing about chaos, but what you're actually bringing about is higher order. Now, going back to the inquiry as to what allows sync to happen, going back to playlisting. When you playlist, you will be looking for heterogeneity, meaning when you develop a library, make sure your library is diverse. Make sure there are multiple frequencies and oscillations. The richer, the better. Don't allow people to entrain themselves with it's good to go into emotions, but too much human elements actually bring people back into trauma. They bring about loops. So don't get people used to the same music. Don't let dependency and reliance come in, because that's really how addiction, spiritual energy addiction starts. When diversity is lost, synchronization actually does not happen. And bottom line, why are we, what are we like, how we were born, we were born as babies, synchronized. And there was a level of synchrony in the baby, between cells, between neurons. We had not yet say limited sync. And when we got initiated into the tradition of language, culture, and sequential thinking, which meant we were bound by time. We're time bound. Synchronization happens in space. Time is temporal. We're bound in time, and to expand time is to go back to space. So for that reason, a lot of people are halting language centers, Broca's and Wernicke's area. A lot of music then that we choose are music bound. So be interested in playlisting like acultural or non-cultural music, that which holds universality. Don't just keep entraining very human tendencies that are manipulative in nature. In my like the last days, I was using the synthesizers, the ones I showed you, and there's a particular interesting guest here. She's French. She's a neurologist. She's been going through many different therapies for a long time. Said that for the first time, a lot of her old childhood memories are actually coming up. That a lot of old healing systems could not unearth. And a lot of it is due to how much noise. And then when we shifted the frequency, she said, "Oh, okay, I see. This is where we need to go." It's very similar to when Christelle from Belgium was here, like we were exposing her brain to a lot of noise and frequency, and there was a miraculous healing that happened in her broken brain, her traumatized brain. People are talking about this experience of like a brain surgery almost. So what I would suggest is working a lot with unfamiliar territory, like almost alien, if you're not afraid, primitive alien. Your ability to sit with the process, even if it's uncomfortable. In the beginning, a lot of people will say it's really uncomfortable. It's even maybe painful. It's hard to sit with it. Your ability to sit with it would reveal like a lot of benefits, gifts, boons. So yeah, we have all these stories of people who, in the beginning, a lot of chaos happened. I remember Christelle from Belgium. She exposed parents to a sleep playlist to their autistic. I think he was 12 or 10 or 8. I don't remember, but basically, it was very scary because the first time they put the sleep playlist on, the child actually took a knife and threatened to kill the brother and himself. So the parents were at this quandary. Should we do this? Is this weird? Is this okay? The parents were doctors, if I remember it right. They decided to trust it. And a couple of days later, there was a total transformation in this boy where there was like a litany of problems, all these problems that come with children in the spectrum. He became the most loving, the wisest, the most relaxed human being in the parents' eyes. So they sat with it. When we let go of our resistance to change, and when we allow ourselves to open up to new frequencies, um, I think we need to bring back the noise that we had taken away, and a lot of that noise is hiding in the darkness. The silence is holding like a lot of noise. We think the silence is quiet. There's a lot of information there, and when we go to sleep, we consolidate and synthesize a lot of that data, and we're really just finding out more and more how to synchronize that in wake and in sleep. Okay, so that's a lot. I hope maybe this can open up conversations, maybe have interesting notes, a lot of new ideas, a lot of old ones coming together. Ahlan is still in the space. I can let him facilitate dialogue. Thank you for listening.
Holds a lot of things from Priya, and for me, it's also interesting to look into the synthesizers and also from a perspective of they are all holding an oscillator and they are having this high and low band. And when you explain the diversity of the waves of the high oscillating frequencies and the delta, that really gives this understanding of when we use the playlist in so many different ways and creating the new way of playlisting, how it is actually creating the diversity. Before, when we are up on the daytime and when we are walking around and having this alpha wave mostly active, how when we lay down, how it can actually create the diversities. For me, it's beautiful to see how it was presented today. Yeah, thanks a lot. Yeah, if you feel like, if you have anything to share, if something comes through you, you can raise your hands and open your mic and share.
I have a question. Pai, I was wondering, when you were at the island by yourself, there was no music or sounds, even instruments, and sometimes the energy is working without this additional things. So what was creating the co-activation of the sympathetic and parasympathetic and this synchronization? Was it like the polarity of the feminine and masculine principles within the energy itself, or what is it that's creating that co-activation of both, of two things that don't usually are together synchronizing at the same time?
Hmm. I think I exposed myself to so much experimentations that were intense that I probably came back to the world holding all these oscillations that are outside of the normal human experience. When I was living in the island, I almost went crazy with the amount of insects. They were so loud. They were so incredibly loud. And when I would meditate, I would feel like my brain, my body was exploding. So I feel probably like when people describe me when I first came back, like my mom, for example, she said like I was so calm, but at the same time I was so intense at the same time. So beneath the level of just the autonomic nervous system, when we think of oscillators, like a lot of that frequency is happening inside the cellular level. So maybe it was quite natural that when I touched people's bodies, they got activated by that resonance. They also remembered that resonance within them that was coming from nature, like nature was initiating people even before I used music.
Thank you.
Anyone has any questions or anything to add?
So if I can go over some of these notes a little bit. There was a few things that I picked up on there that I thought were really interesting, and the developing range thing. So having the fast and slow, and I remember when you recommended Daniel Kahneman's work to me, the thinking fast and slow. It's like having access to these two systems almost at the same time, and like normalizing being able to hold the complexity of having those two systems. And it kind of struck me as a bit of a like a flow state where you're tapped into high levels of concentration, so very focused concentration, but also kind of very deep, slow relaxation. And that's how they describe a flow state. And Jamie Wheel has a book, Stealing Fire. He talks about that and how you use the kind of the breath to bring about that balance of sympathetic and parasympathetic, where you're not think it's like I think, and there's the Japanese concept mushin, of like no mind like water, where you're holding all of that complexity, but you're completely relaxed and acting and not thinking about it. And so that was really, really interesting. I wanted to ask a question about melatonin and how so if I'm like meditating in the middle of the night when the melatonin is the highest, that's presumably like I was trying to figure out what my question was about it when I was thinking of it, but it was something like the relationship between melatonin space? And does that give it kind of pulls you out of time a little bit, gives you more access to like non-linear space type stuff? Because that time does seem very potent to me. To the 4 a.m. window, it does feel like it's easy to drop into a deeper state there and have more like access to, I guess, kind of realization and things like that. So yeah, that will be a question.
Yeah, let's go into that one. There's a lot of interesting things coming out of the meeting point between circadian rhythms and like the studying of how the eye works. So in the past, the basic belief was that the eyes have photoreceptors, and these are very, very sensitive. So there's a direct connection between the eyes and the hypothalamus, which then talks to the pineal gland, which is the third eye for a lot of people, to send out melatonin that brings us into sleep. But there's something really interesting being found out where even blind people can actually see. So even when you don't see images, there's another connection between the eyes and the brain. I think it's called the reticular hypothalamic tract, where there's a different kind of sensitivity in which we go about the rhythms of rising and falling. So there's something about light. There's something about our relationship with light. We are able to go a lot deeper when in the absence of light. So a lot of people, they like to do the work either in dark spaces. They draw the curtains. We ask people to close their eyes. But it's very interesting. Some people actually go into the journey with their eyes open. It doesn't mean they're going more shallow. Now, a lot of people wear dark sunglasses, and that's doing something. It's not actually healthy in many ways because we're not exposing ourselves to enough lumens. We need bright light in order to establish a healthy sleep-wake cycle. And if there's like a sleeping disorder, and we're not getting enough light, I think then we're not healthy. But I think the other could be just as much, where if we're not getting enough dark. So now you have all these people, they're looking at screens at night, they're watching Netflix and whatnot, and this is not something we can push away. It's already part of the world. What we need to do is we need to talk about, okay, what's happening then, now that we're exposed to so much electronic information? What is that doing to the eyes? So I think the eye is changing in a way that we're perceiving virtual realities that were a lot more concrete in the past, meaning we're dreaming awake through the devices in a way that we used to dream about those a lot more when we were actually going into dream time. So I think we do need to bring meditation and inner dance and all kinds of work to schools, just like what Flora is doing with her child, whereby we should not lose our capacity to dream internally rather than externally. Because when people do watch a superhero movie, they're dreaming. When they're reading a Harry Potter book, they are dreaming. Could be sacred literature, they're still dreaming. But in training from inside, I think one of the things we're proposing is sound at least has entrainment mechanisms that are less invasive than the drugs that people are taking, or a lot of the other entrainment mechanisms. And human beings have always been using entrainment mechanisms that are altering perception, altering behavior, altering our thinking process. So what we're realizing is returning to frequency, returning to sound, heightening our sensitivity in many ways actually mirror what is there. We suddenly have this metacognition. Melatonin would be a really big gift, and I think we need to understand more and more what does the pineal gland do beyond just sending out melatonin. Now, melatonin is synthesized from serotonin, and serotonin is the chemical that is responsible for deep happiness and deep joy. So people who have a low serotonin count, it would mean you actually have a low dream count. So people who are stressed out, I think this is something I wanted to point out with the hypothalamus. The part of the brain that is sensitive to anxiety and fear is also responsible for dreaming. And very nearby is oxytocin, which is responsible for trusting, loving. So when people are invested in stress, they have high cortisol levels even when they're sleeping, and then they're not dreaming anymore. They're still thinking about problems while they're asleep. Then we're not going into the REM state, which is when the high and low co-activation is happening. So I think one of the biggest mistakes people are experiencing in modern society is people are taking melatonin in pills. And melatonin doesn't actually put people to sleep. It entrains us more into a vibratory state where you shouldn't take melatonin as a sedative. It doesn't actually work. Like a lot of people think alcohol is a sedative. It doesn't actually put you to sleep. It unnerves you. It brings more proximity to the REM state. So what human beings are training themselves to do is to use melatonin even while they're awake. That's what we're studying, right? The sound can entrain, closing the eyes can entrain, and when melatonin goes up, even while we are awake, the combination of melatonin with cortisol, dopamine, serotonin, oxytocin, all of these coming together, which are usually sent out apart from each other. When you're stressed out, it's cortisol goes up. When you're trusting, oxytocin goes up. But when you actually bring all of these up, cortisol doesn't need to be a damaging chemical. It can aid in metabolism, in immunity. So when you're balanced in this flow state, and the flow state writers like Jamie Wheel, they talk about theta gamma needing to bind with each other. We can train ourselves to dream awake, and I think there's a benefit from dreaming awake as compared to dreaming asleep. I'm not against dreaming asleep. I think a lot of consolidation and synthesis will happen in sleep, so we need to sleep really well. But I think we're not waking very well. So there's something about that zone that you mentioned, Tom. It's called the zombie zone in circadian science. It's called the witching hour in spiritual circles. It's when people supposedly see ghosts and spirits. It's actually also just because melatonin is high, the veil separating the imaginary and the real is very, very thin. And we can reach into other dimensions when we're there. So the question is, could we send out melatonin even during the day? That would mean activating the pineal gland so that understanding the sensitivity of the retinal receptors. When there's light, melatonin goes down. But if melatonin is required for dream time, like when you have the EEGs, when you ask people to close their eyes, alpha wave would shoot up incredibly. It's so interesting. Um, which means when in the absence of light, dreaming actually occurs almost instantaneously. If you can train humans to dream again, I think more would become possible. There would be more insight, there would be more intelligence, more wisdom. But because we killed it, the dream time got pushed back. We pushed back the darkness. And now we're also pushing back the light by wearing sunglasses. We need more light and we need more darkness. So I think we're changing the brain. I think we're redesigning, we're hacking the brain and the nervous system somehow, and all these different experimentations from Wim Hof, innerdance. Some people do other things. I do like sound because it is the least invasive, and music has always had a place in religion, in culture. That's always brought people into deep space. It's just music needs to be altered now to interact with the intense, accelerated changes that have already taken place in the human.
I find it also interesting to see the sounds we create from synthesizers. These are sounds which are in the nature, they do not exist. So we create from a perfect sine wave. And so that it is actually opening up the big diversity into it. And so it's like it's also in the last few years, in the dance, these sounds are coming up. And also by looking into the history of the playlisting, you can also see what I could recognize is that there is in a way also a kind of a 12 stages hidden within the history of the 12 stages, where we can experience the emotional outbreaks and everything at the beginning, and then seeing at the end like a synthesizes where it creates the space for synthesis. Yeah, it's something I observed and want to know if there is something to.
There's a lot there. First, when you do study the brain is like a synthesizer. The brain is the brain cell is a musician. When you study oscillators, the neuron is a musician, first and foremost. They're sending out music. So I think we invented music to match the music that's already inside. So when you do study the brain waves, you don't have the pure tone. The pure tone is simulated. What's actually in the brain would be square, sawtooth, triangle waves, which are combinations of simple waves. So the brain is actually quite noisy. There's a whole chaos and higher order of networks that's coordinating like everything simultaneously, synchronizing everything. So using synthesizers will do various things. Number one, it can provide like a starting point. Like right now, because a lot of people are using too many songs and it's getting a little bit too messy. When you use like simple frequencies, you can bank on that and you can build the foundations in that, and then you can add to it and add to it. And what people would feel based on feedback is there's like a starting point, a core, a foundation, because a frequency is a frequency. It's not information that's on a thought level. It hasn't really been slowed down. It's like a thought level. So when you add another frequency, what you have is a coupling, what you have is a sync, right? So play one frequency and then let teach people to be patient. Okay, wait for it, wait for it, then you add another frequency. Then it would phase lock with each other. And then you add another frequency to the point where, okay, the brain is now able to handle more and more. So I find that you're actually able to target specific issues in the human outside of the random, messy, everything happening at the same time. So even though there's simultaneity, what what we need to be very conscious of though is there has to be something stable. And usually that's a rhythm. So underneath anything that you're doing, listing things down, what we're using is either noise, silence, music, and now frequency. Okay, 4 categories. Another would be words. Like the spoken word can be a very, very powerful entrainment device. If we're thinking of the categories of sound when you go shopping, silence plays a really big part. When you create gaps, dopamine rerouting would happen. A lot of insight would occur, and then you start again, and then you drop it again, and you start again. So I think synthesizers will bring up a study of repetition, periodicity, duration, where you would have really small durations and really long ones. The beat pattern, the rhythm would create a stability, and then underneath that could be instability, randomness, which does exist in nature and in the brain. The brain doesn't repeat. There would always be complex patterns in the brain. You can never predict the brain. But giving the brain something stable would allow for greater chaos, actually, to hold even higher order. So I really appeal to people, explore the wonder of what is out there, because especially analog synthesizers, some of them are really small. They don't cost that much money. Some of them, they could be apps in your phone or in your laptop. You could have a MIDI keyboard. You press a key and then you can alter the tone, the low frequency oscillation, the attack, the delay, the sustain, the rate and depth, you know. When you're doing that, like an analog synthesizer is actually um, voltage controlled oscillations. It's electricity that's being gated through rhythmic on and off switches. That's all it is. And so when you do study the brain works with voltage gating oscillations as well. The brain is actually a VCO, or a voltage controlled oscillator. There's no difference between a synthesizer, especially an analog one, and a digital synthesizer mimics an analog synthesizer. And because of an analog synthesizer is actually a kind of brain, there's literally no difference. The drum would be more of the heartbeat. The drum doesn't mimic the brain. The rhythm, the African drum beat mimicked the heartbeat. So when you use a drum, you're speaking to the heart. But when you're using oscillations, you're speaking to the brain. You need to study both.
There are 2 questions in the chat bar. Yeah.
Yeah, I see them. Carrie, I would love that. I actually wanted to do that today, but I think it would take a whole entire session. I would like to offer that up as a bonus um, Zoom call. It could happen anytime. Ahilan will share more of the community call that's going to be coming up, but I would love to go into the technicalities actually outside of our global Zooms, because there's so much science and theory that takes like a year to unravel, and then the applications part for you to master it, it's not that complicated, but you would maybe um, put in the hours, let's say 10 minutes a day, 20 minutes a day. You're training not your mind but your body to play the frequencies until you're not thinking about it anymore. The difficulty in modeling how I build a playlist is that I have maybe 5 or 6 or 7 different platforms. In each platform might take an hour or two already. So I can model a DAW platform using Logic Pro or Ableton. It could be DJ Pro. It could be the noise app. It could be the synthesizers. There's complexity there, and I would love for all of you to enjoy exploring all the possibilities bit by bit, slowly. Is there an app or something that can show us which brainwave a song or sound is, or even our own sounds? Well, you could have an EEG that can read brainwaves, but we're not building one-to-one correspondences between brainwaves and the sounds. There would be close correlations between the BPM in music and the heart rate, how many beats per minute the heart is beating. But when it comes to oscillations, what we look at would be more the representations of what is delta, theta, alpha, beta, gamma, being like deep meditation and hyper awareness. A lot of these are systems of interpretation that's either really basic in science, and in your part, you would have to create your own system, both from experience and from your creativity. So we're not going too mathematical. I think a lot of the insights in these are very relative. So a lot of people, they would go into what's the healing tone, is like this hurts, that frequency. Inner dance doesn't go into that. We actually see healing between the transitions from one frequency to another. It's when we create the change between the songs, the frequencies, or the noise, where a stimulus brings about an autonomic response system in the human that allows them to make decisions on fear states and reward states that then would lead to greater insight and an altered state of being. So we're not studying strict one-to-one correspondence. It's going to be more creative. You're going to explore your own. Recreating new sounds through synthesizers or discovering new sounds. I think it's all. We need to study ancient and new. And there are a lot of people who would blow on bodies. They would get leaves and scratch them together near your body. We would only know through exploration. And each Christopher Columbus is a really good one to bring up. Each body will be different depending on the time of the day, the time of the year, and you have to know this for yourself. I think you're in Spain, so feel. So this is, yeah, yes, Katya, it is. Okay, like more sharings, questions, or experiences, resonances, ideas, synchronizations.
Sandra has a question. Yeah, you have to unmute. Yep. We cannot hear you, Sandra. Yes.
Oh, hello. I was talking with hello, Pi. Hi, how all of you? I was in love completely with this sentence that you said, no? We invented music to match the music we had inside. And I was trying to continue with the sentence putting understanding that that music was also noise and chaos, and that rhythm was holding the space. I don't know if I got a little bit in general, no? Yeah, thank you. Beautiful.
That's totally it. Like what we like to keep sharing with people in trainings is rhythm organizes time. I picked this up from a book in Helsinki on musicology, and it really struck me because in my experience, when I hold a particular rhythm, either I'm using a drum, it's within a song, and I can change the tempo based on the DJ app or other apps. When I change the tempo, I actually see there's a change in dimensionality. So in the beginning, you would make big changes in tempo. That's why there's a lot of song switching. Diversity means also contrast or juxtaposition between fast and slow. And a lot of the most transformative moments happens usually when you drop from fast into slow, more than when you go from slow to fast. So the more variations you bring in, the more changes can occur because of the internal decisions people can make usually to do with trauma or fear. People either hide, run away, fight, or they can open and surrender. And so when you raise and lower, sometimes the more abrupt, the more change. And then later we were able to hold more gentle transitions. I think what's really interesting is in the new playlisting systems, we're realizing that we can hold multiple rhythms at the same time. For some people, that can be very confusing, but for some people, it actually provides a very deep quiet. It's very ironic. Like the noisier it gets, for some people, it's so quiet. They can actually hear their thoughts. They can see the structure of their own brain, their own consciousness. They can see the whole architecture of time and space. So I think we're training the body to hold not just a dimension or a rhythm, but polyrhythm. Like when you study Western African music, the drum is very polyrhythmic. And when you study Western European American music, the rhythm is very constant. It's very dependable, stable for it's very simple. Old cultures are not simple. Like the gamelan in Bali or Indonesia, it's very arrhythmic. Carnatic music or the music from the Indian tradition, it's very, very nonlinear. So when we expose people to multiple rhythms, either from within cultures and then even beyond, people are able to hold more information in their bodies, expanding like the brain, expanding the mind. It's the training. There was something interesting that we did here a couple of days ago where I was doing a demo with Yuri. You know Yuri, he went to your training. And I was using a synthesizer, and Matt was playing the singing bowl, and he was going quite deep. But for a person who is like sitting up and with eyes open, and Italy is very sensitive to sound, she gets irritated. Like she was really irritated because I really just put something on, I didn't prepare, and it didn't sound good. But then what she decided was she would lay down. As soon as she lay down and closed her eyes, she instantly went there. So she realized the music is not the same depending on how you're listening to it. The moment you go horizontal, the moment you close your eyes, you're not hearing the sound from your frontal cortex or even your auditory cortex. You actually feel it across the whole body. It's like the whole body becomes a gigantic ear, and the dimensionality within that is just so much more than. So I think that's something for us to build empathically, where we would imagine, okay, how are they hearing this? Because when you're standing up, you can actually hear what they might be hearing. You have to even close your eyes and you have to build empathy. So one advice I give in trainings is when people walk in, I don't like it when they're laying down and they're starting to go in. I don't like it when facilitators are standing up over and above people. I like it when we crouch down. We try not to tower over people. And I don't like it that we would be the last thing they would see, that you have a whole bunch of people standing up over others. It doesn't create safety. I like to make it about them. So in terms of resonance and listening, um, there's something about how people are transforming the music when they go inside. Um, so yeah, thank you. You inspired me to think about this in so many different ways. Car, I think, is raising her hand. Is that Carly or Carmen?
Yeah. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to know, basically, I'm working in a hospital, but some patients are very patient. They are very anxious. I was just wondering what type of music maybe I can be using for those patients in psychiatry unit who are quite agitated.
The agitation would be if you haven't yet set enough context, they would not yet be enough in a parasympathetic system for them to allow themselves to go in, where the trigger mechanisms could help them. So the music would matter less than the actual context or words that you need to be able to speak to. Because when people walk into hospitals, they're normally very agitated to begin with. So either what you could think about is to build like an inpatient or an outpatient modality where they either are doing it at home. You can send certain playlists that they can use at home. The benefit in doing it like in the hospital or clinic is you are able to bring about like confrontation within the autonomic nervous system that's more active, where people can face their fear and their pain in a more conscious way. Sometimes people need that. But bringing people into a trusting space in a hospital setting is not as easy because of the conditions in it. You need to be able to speak certain words like everything's happening for a reason. How would you trust this? And they need to be able to trust you, to trust the sound, to trust themselves, to trust the space. There would be music for sure that we can recommend. A lot of that would be for you to master the noise app, to study how it is used. And let's see, if you haven't if you're not familiar with it, I would put it up now and say a few words about the usage of this. Now, the Noise app is one of the most used tools in innerdance. And we're talking to the owner right now, who happens to be in Belgium by synchronicity. I almost actually met him when I had a meeting with one of the biggest music corporations in the world, Roland, and he used to be an engineer there. So there are a lot of sounds here that are very calming that you can put up bit by bit. I'm not sharing my sound right now, but just for you to imagine. You can play as many as 5 sounds at a time, and meaning you can add oscillations one at a time in a way that would be very.
We don't see the my noise screen.
Oh, so sorry. Yeah. There. Okay. So here's the library. And a lot of these are very, very calming. Now, we want to just announce that we have recently just spoken with the owner of this app. This for us is the most elegant, most usable app in the innerdance universe, next to the this DJ app. Now, speaking to the owner, he is quite concerned that people might be using this in commercial ways. So people would be using this app and they're earning quite a bit, let's say charging a certain amount of money per person, and then there's 20, 30 people coming. He would like to then come up with a licensing agreement for this. I'm only talking about this because I'm suggesting this now in public, that if you were to use this, we're suggesting maybe a 50 to 100 euro yearly license if you find that this will be something you would use in public, but it's basically for private use. He's actually creating a very special deal or contract with the inner dance community. We're the only ones who are going to be allowed to use it in public. I mean, he can't control anything, but he's not a big corporation, and very high cost, high engineering had gone into this, and he's been trying to make it affordable for people around the world. So if you were to use, anyone was to use the Noise app in like big workshops, big trainings and whatnot, that option of doing that with integrity is going to come up soon. So for you, Claudia, is it? You would gain independence in how you would use noise more than music, so that you can match intuitively where people might be. Sometimes it could just be like the sound of waves, the sound of uh soft music, or a certain frequency. And then if you feel that you can now raise the vibration to help their heartbeat heart rate rise up so that they can face their pain. They're needing to be that co-activation between the sympathetic and parasympathetic. You can't keep the music just purely relaxing. You need to bring in the trigger elements, otherwise you're pushing away some of the source of the pain. Yeah, I hope this is clear
Thank
or
you.
helpful. You're welcome. Okay, so we have two raised hands, Car and Caro. Car, who would like to share first? And if we could see you.
Maybe car is someone from the car. Raise the hand. Yeah.
No, it's Carly. Yeah, it's Carly. Someone from the car. We can't hear you.
So I had this realization earlier today whenever I listened to the African Time playlist. I'm pretty well versed in like constitutional theory of Ayurveda, and I think that I would be able to use that framework into helping to specify what kind of playlists would be suitable for certain people. I mean, it would be more on a one-on-one basis than on a group aspect. But in those practices, people that have vata imbalances or kapha imbalances or pitta imbalances, they have a certain kind of music to balance that out. So if you could take depending on what they needed, where they were trying to go, you could take the opposite to try to bring them into those levels of discordance to work through those things, and then balance it out with the other part of the actually balancing music to help them balance out. So I just wanted to add that in. I'm not sure if anybody else has considered like constitutional theory a way to help focus your playlisting to a certain kind of person, or if you're making something specifically for a person, or a diagnosis or pathology. It could probably be helpful. Like all kinds of mental health issues, those are all like very vata type of issues. Yeah, so that was my addition for today.
Exciting. Yeah, there would be like a multitude of frameworks. Innerdance is so multimodal, so anyone who comes up with a creation mode, then you would be prototyping something within that existing framework. So you would show us, and we would be really excited to see it. And then we encourage people coming from other frameworks to compare notes and do their own. So it would just keep spreading out. So this is really beautiful.
Caro, hi.
Hello. It's perfect and synchronized because I just parked the car. I was coming back from work. So yeah, thank you. Hello, everyone. Just jumping into the call, and I was listening to yesterday's or Tuesday's call, and I got really interested and excited by the synchronization theme and concept. And I was wondering it gives like so much understanding to many things that we are holding already. And I was wondering about the playlisting, because all the subject, all the correlations and bridging about the time and the time to listen to the playlist, it talked really to me, because I've seen that I'm almost journeying only before to go to bed, around 11, around midnight always. And this is the moment where I engage the most with the playlist, and I have the deepest, like more significant like experiences. And when I'm holding bodies, also depends on the hours. It's not all the time the same. Sometimes it's in the morning and also at the sunset, during the sunsets. And so yeah, I observed also like many different things. And nowadays, yeah, about the techniques, it was interesting, like this week or more last week, to go into the history of the playlist with the group. Because it gave like really like we could see like picture the evolution also of the energy and the way the techniques also how it did evolve. And I think we hold like this in our bodies. And I was wondering what will be like the playlisting of tomorrow. I mean, now that we have all these feedbacks, I see myself like holding space, like doing like live playlisting, but using different type of playlisting. Actually, I can use like at the same time DJ Pro, or like the sound that I create in my DAW, like in my home studio, and then I put layers. I build my own system, and I see myself like building this own system. And it's like infinite kind of unfolding like system. So it's really interesting, because sometimes I will also use songs at the same time. So it's really like diverse, and not only in the sound but in the technique. So it's kind of like multi multi techniques, multi playlisting stuff, that is happening now. So I'm observing also like the feedbacks are really like diverse, sorry. And it's really interesting to see the shifts. So yeah, this is an open question. What will be the playlisting of tomorrow, with all the things that we now know and we start to measure with the EEG, which is really get my attention. And I'm really excited about all of this topic, and really wanted to thank you for the for the call of yesterday. It was really super cool to listen to. So thank you.
Yeah, thank you. I'm vibrating with this conversation I had with this French lady. She was so adamant, like when she was listening to the oscillations playlisting, she said, this is where we need to go. And I think she's been working a lot on herself, and she's saying, this is the first time this is working. I mean, all songs are made of frequencies. This is more of understanding. If we start from the beginning now, if we find the starting point, we can make our way towards. I'm using still quite a lot of songs, and I would put that in, but I'd hide it behind noise. And I would use it only in particular times when I feel it's really needed. But then I would put it back, and I would bring in more like immersions, like really in-depth stuff. So I definitely, we don't have an answer as to where things are going, but we do have at least like an ecosystem to think things through. So I love going through these once in a while, and even like translating the processes. So there hasn't been a lot of people laid down to long time in African time. But I just looked at Carly's message a minute ago, right after she had shared, right before she'd shared, then I saw then she was talking about it, because I wanted to look at feedbacks. Ibeth from Colombia, it's in Spanish. This is really interesting. Like in African time, there were more images, there were more clear thinking, clear solutions to problems that she didn't think about when she was awake. And then in long time, it's more like empty, coming into the cosmos, going back to the earth. So there's huge differentiations, and I would really keep observing possible reflections on like here interesting interesting stuff. Like clearly did something to me. I was able to have a very difficult conversation in a very constructive way in clear language, while this is usually often a very difficult task for me. I'm interested in these more super focused ones, the ones that are for studying, like or here the ones for sleeping. I don't know, like there's a lot there. So let's explore together. And when I think we should all log in the feedbacks. I myself need to have greater discipline so that even here in Maya, when I use a playlist, when someone shares, I should write it down and log it in, because we are seeing creators, and you're one of them, Caro. Like you've got some amazing playlists in the in that list over there. Caro was the one who did like Odyssey is one of the big ones. So try that out. Then she made this one, doesn't have an entry yet, mostly for teenagers. This one hasn't really been played yet. So a lot of these have intentions in them. They have particular personas, like a playlist is alive and it speaks to particular audiences in particular situations. The feedbacks are really, really valuable. We won't get beyond where we are now if we don't establish more discipline with feedbacks. We won't join the scientists. It's really happening. I have like all these calls I have to make with people doing research. Like on Monday, I have I'm supposed to do a call with someone from an MIT research lab. If any of you know what MIT is, and then I'm doing another call with a neuroscientist like from Manila. So I'm getting all these invitations to, like Val was asking me to work with to sit down with someone in Singapore who's working in these brain scanners. But I think we can't jump into the quantitative without being in the qualitative. So a lot of you laying down, exploring, experimenting with your bodies, you're paving the way. You are you're frontiers people, and you're helping humanity through your making possible what may not have been maybe even possible before, altering your experience, stretching out the range for the spectrum of what is possible. You're doing something really cool. So I feel that doesn't need to get lost. We could try to make improvements in the website so we can make sure, your experience is honored. So make sure you log in your journey. I think we could close soon. Is there anyone else who has interesting anythings to help round off? Any ideas, insights, questions still lingering?
Hi, Pai. I'm Oscar. I'm joined here without camera. I would like to share a bit about my transition into a new playlisting style, and also how the concept of music has to be really expanded and also contracted in order to find a new ways, new boxes for this. Well, I just was going through the process to being familiarized with the technology, as many of the participants, we are here in the same page, trying to familiarize with from a music player into programming or software in the computer, and now with the drives and the devices and the different options that we have for making the music or the sound coming direct from our machines and not directly from the music from other artists and things. But in my case, I found interesting how the last version of music, the playlist, the tool of sampling some things, how to get things that I find interesting, how also making these rhythms with the noises that we also can capture. We can make the drums, making with our own ways to make these sounds, and not coming also from a sine wave already defined, which also represent the old sound that is already out in the collective consciousness, in the industry, in the producers, and all these things that we need to go upper in order to helping the newness to come through the brains, the new expression of whatever wasn't before, and it's not in the reference and the harmonic reference that the music that we used to listen in the commercial way. So I just with this opinion, I'm trying to say that it's very interesting to because it's a question that Val shared also there about what is the best device to record live sounds from nature, and not just for recording live sounds, for making the drums, for making the different, as you mentioned something, how to take a leaf and recording the leaf with the hands when you are touching them. For me, is starting to opening a new paradigm where the concept of music is about the organization of how is introduced information, plus not invest instead to the concept that is the bass, the drummer, the keyboards, the guitar, the voice, the melody, how we can start to see a lot of riches in our daily life's noises, in the home, how exploring and understanding the qualities that noise will be providing us for the new music and dreaming state that we want to propose through inner dance processes. It's just that I want to make this comment. Thank you.
Amazing. I've been wanting to tell you there's a whole bunch of Mexicans in Maya at the moment. This is a musician named Victor who brought over a bunch of people. And yeah, I was telling him some of my conversations with you. Matt is still here. Musicians are wired differently. Like your brain is structured in a different way. And I remember like a lot of people came to me a long time ago, coming from the initial CAP trainings, and they were being told that the music doesn't matter. And then they had all these questions, but then why are we using it? Because that's the tool they're being given, but then they're being told it doesn't actually matter. I don't think we should invalidate one of the most beautiful art forms, traditions, because the human mind grew with music. Culture grew with music, like language itself piggybacked in music. And as we perceive changes in music, we're perceiving changes in ourselves. So musicians will play a big part in one way. Facilitators of energy are now becoming musicians by default, automatically. Like the energy itself is composing the music. But in going into some of the deeper structural aspects that will be able to bring this into schools, into hospitals, even more, deeper therapy, if we're going to use it, we really need to work well what we are using in regards to how we can bring more nature into music, more nonlinear structures as you speak. So I'm really excited that in the next years there would be journeys and coursework musicians could design to make the entry point accessible to everyone, that we're able to DJ the universe, or the, like multiple dimensions in many ways. So I taught myself everything that I know. I didn't have a teacher, but it did take me years. And now technology is improving, that it's becoming really intuitive. When any of you learn anything, make it intuitive. Don't teach your mind, teach your body, and make everything that you do an extension of your heart. Make it an extension of your nervous system, that there's this intuition there's this non-thinking, extensive, intensive relationality between what's inside and outside. Having said that, I feel music can provide psychology, neurology, and anthropology a missing link, and even linguistics. There's something missing out in the cognitive sciences, and there's a new track in universities called music cognition. People are now seeing music can integrate a lot of the understanding of language, the mind, spirit, and the brain. It's like a space in between. It holds mysterious structures. And if we're going to give that to people, we're giving a non-linear system in a very linear world. It's non-verbal, it's multi-dimensional. It speaks to the body in a very direct way. Information just really, expands, and the effects of it we're enjoying, we're sharing. Keep hearing all these stories about children, adults. It's like changing. It's blowing our minds. Like, wow, how could we have missed this? It's so easy. It's actually so simple. I think we could close. This has been rich. We'll keep synchronicity and synchronization alive. This is actually just an introductory call into the topic. It's a necessary one. I think you would approach music very differently now, coming from some of the ideas that would take you some time to digest. But as I spoke, my initial suggestion is use synchronization and synchronicity as a language that you can embody more and more. It speaks about connection, resonance between all thoughts, all words, past, present, future, here, there, and everywhere, like in between us all. And most importantly, I think synchronization talks about cooperation versus competition. I think real synchronicity and synchronization means we're building a world built on cooperation, not competition, not scarcity. If we can really truly synchronize with each other, we will build bridges, not burn them. And next thing you know, this would spread, this gifting space. So thank you. Amazing. We close. Ahilan, maybe you can talk about the community call. It's good for you to put that into words.
Yeah, I just shared the time and date in the chat. We want to open this Zoom space for a community call next Sunday. It's 9 a.m. GMT plus 0 is the first one, so that we can cover all the time zones. And the second one will be in the 6 p.m. GMT plus, so that from all around the world we can come together. You can feel free to join any of those or both. This call is this space and Sunday will be not recorded, and we will go into some questions and check in and sharing our experiences. That's meant for. So we are inviting to join and happy to see you there.
And then maybe let's put up or synchronize into some studio playlisting, technical workshop calls as well on other time zones for those who really want to go deep into that. We'll announce that through the groups when we can. Yeah. Amazing. Okay. We let people rest then. Thank you.
Let us open our mic and synchronize our voices and hearts and say bye and thank you, everyone.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye, everyone.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you so
Love you
much.
guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye.
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 Bye.